Hi, it's Mia Friedman here, jumping into your ears quickly to let you know that we have a brand new podcast at Mamma Mia. It's called Me After You. It's all about identity after motherhood. It's hosted by the fabulous Laura Byrne, and in every episode, Laura guides women through their very different stories of life and identity after becoming a mother. The first episode is out now, and it's all about that time when you're really grappling with who you are as a woman after you have a baby. You'll hear from women like Alex Nation, who got pregnant at 18 and wrestled with being a kid with a baby, and Narelda Jacobs. She's such an incredible woman. Her No Filter episode that we did a few weeks ago was so hugely popular because she's amazing. She had a shotgun wedding just before she came out as gay to her very conservative family. Enjoy this very first episode of the show, and if you want to hear more of it, head over to the Me After You feed on your podcast app and hit subscribe.
This episode of Me After You is made in partnership with Huggies. Be as comfortable in your skin as your baby feels in Huggies nappies. Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome to our very first episode of Me After You. I'm Laura Byrne, and I'm a business owner, a podcaster, a partner, and I'm also a mum to one very sassy little one-year-old named Marley May. And over the next 10 episodes, I'm going to be diving into the wonder and the absolute chaos that is motherhood with women from all across Australia. Over the course of these episodes, you are going to hear stories from women who have become mothers after years of fertility struggles. Women who followed the traditional route of first comes marriage and then comes babies, and many stories in between. Like our guest who found out she was pregnant after a wild one-night stand with her boss. No matter how it happens, there is one thing that every single mum has in common, and that is that motherhood, it changes you forever. I didn't know that. I thought that when I had a baby, well, after the newborn tidal wave had retreated, I'd go back to being the exact same person, just with a tiny human in tow. I thought I'd be a cool mum. Well, my illusions of what motherhood was going to be was swiftly kicked out of me. Looking back, I was totally unprepared for the way that motherhood would dismantle my sense of self. But then again, aren't we all? We have made this series to celebrate motherhood in all its exhausting, messy joy, and also as a warm hug for every mother out there, navigating life with a baby and rediscovering who they are at the very same time. In this episode, we are going to be talking about identity. You're going to hear from Alex Nation, who got pregnant at 18 and wrestled with being little more than a kid, with a kid. Narelda Jacobs, who had a shotgun wedding before coming out as gay to her very conservative family. From the mum behind Not So Mumsy's Instagram, who was in absolutely no rush to have children. And also from some ordinary women, whose names you don't know yet, but they have extraordinary stories of motherhood to tell. Welcome to Me After You. Marcia Leone shares a lot about her life as a mum on social media. It has become an inextricable and fundamental part of her online identity. You may better know her as the founder of Instagram account Not So Mumsy. Growing up, Marcia was one of 10 children in her blended family, and this big, vibrant household wasn't something that she wanted to rush into for herself.
I actually grew up in the semi-rural outskirts of Sydney, so on a big property, like 400 acres. I was one of 6 biological children. I have to calculate this.
It's all right. When you have to go into the second hand, you're like, yeah, we are.
Yeah, and I was the second eldest, so I had a kind of a real country-style upbringing, which I absolutely loved. And then when I got into my teens, my mum started to foster children. So we welcomed a whole another group of brothers and sisters into the family. And as an adult, they're kind of growing up, we kind of have the adult family, and now they're still young. So the youngest is now 9 and the eldest has just turned 18, and he's adopted. And they've been with us since birth pretty much, or 6 months, the first 6 months of life they've been with us. So they're definitely very much part of our family. But growing up, it was my biological siblings and I for my childhood.
That's amazing. It's almost like your mum was like, okay, they're all gone. I want to do the parenting thing again, and went through that.
Yeah, she has always said that she was born to be a mother, and that's what she felt was her calling. She's so maternal, obviously, and it was beautiful to be brought up with a mother that was so focused on raising her children. And we also went through some tragedies while I was a young girl as well, with the loss of my sister. So watching her go through that was traumatic as a child, and also as a mother myself, looking back to see how she, would have felt through that time. And I think that was the catalyst for her, or one of the reasons that she decided to foster and adopt children as well.
Having a mother who has dedicated her entire life to her children, how did that create a path for you as to you becoming a mother? Like, what did that do for you?
Well, I never really felt that maternal pull, to be honest. So I was out traveling and working and enjoying my whole 20s. And it wasn't until I turned 30 that I felt like, with a push from my husband, he felt ready before me, to be honest, because I knew I came from a big family. I knew exactly what it was like to raise children from looking at it through my eyes, watching my mother do it, and it was chaos. He didn't understand that. He was like one of two, and he just thought, hey, let's have a baby. It's going to be really easy. And I knew the realities of what it would entail. So I felt like that I had to be ready, and I felt like I had to tick off all these things to do, thinking that I had to, when I was a mum, I would probably have to do it like my mum, but I've learnt that I've done it differently, and it's worked for me. I haven't had nearly as many children, number one, which has enabled me to do other things. I mean, I think just when you have that many children, you can't do anything else. It's not possible. But for me, my career was important. That sense of self was important. Traveling was important. I had grown up. My mum started having children at 19. I was like in my early 30s when I had my son. So I think that was a very different entry into motherhood for both of us as well.
How do you think, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off then, but how do you think that the way you view yourself has changed since having kids?
For some reason, having children gave me confidence. I was not a confident person in myself. It's so bizarre. I don't know whether because the focus is kind of taken off yourself and you're focusing on someone else, but I was always picking myself apart, and I wasn't a confident person at all, but having children gave me confidence. And I can't put my finger on exactly what that is or why that happened, but I feel more confident as a person. I think it might have something to do with finding my purpose. I feel like I found my purpose, these things that I was searching for, in my career and in travel and all these things, trying to find my purpose in life. I didn't realise my purpose would be my children, and maybe that's why.
It's pretty amazing that you're the one that was like, no, we need to do all these other things first. Like, I got to travel. I've got to search the world. I've got to have accomplished life before having kids. And your partner's like, come on, just have a baby.
Yeah.
And then when you actually do it, you're like, oh, this is – because I felt exactly the same. I thought that – I genuinely thought life kind of ended when you have kids, and that's what I was really prepared for.
Well, I think that's what the kind of a message. That's kind of the message that we hear. You better do that before you have a baby. You better travel. You better do this. You better do that. And so that's kind of, I was here to say, hey, guess what? You can still do it.
For some women, becoming a mum means a whole new version of themselves is uncovered. That was the case for Narelda Jacobs. Narelda is a journalist for Channel 10, a newsreader, and daughter to a Whadjuk Noongar minister in the Uniting Church, a proud member of the LGBT community, and she's a mum. Because her dad was a minister, Narelda had quite a conservative and strict upbringing and was married at only 18 years old. Soon after getting married, she gave birth to her daughter Jade. It was when she became a mother that Narelda also became more comfortable with her sexuality.
It feels like a whole nother lifetime ago. I was 18 when I was pregnant, and so I had Jade when I was 19. I was newly married when she came along. We had only just gotten married 6 months earlier, so I was already 3 months pregnant. It was a shotgun wedding, as you would call it. The marriage didn't last very long. Jade was about 6 months when we separated, and then so I was raising her as a single mum for a lot of her early years. Yeah, it was a lifetime ago.
Yeah, and then also around the same time, you've come out as being gay to your family.
Yes.
And what was this life and this transition? Because it must have been such a crazy time of change for you.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that?
Well, when Jade was 1, I started going out with my very good friend Marion, who, when we sort of struck up the friendship, I didn't realise really what was going on. I just loved spending time with her. Just to set the scene as well, my dad was a reverend of the Uniting Church and my mum was heavily involved in ministry. So we were brought up thinking that gays were going to hell and, AIDS was brought as punishment from God and, all that sort of stuff. So that's what I was brought up believing, and I believed it, So I had suppressed any of my attractions to women or even, friends at school, for example, not really knowing what it meant and why I was sort of feeling these. I just thought it was like close friendships, and wanting to spend time with people because it just made me feel good, but I didn't really know the reason why. So Marion and I had been close friends, and then our relationship developed, and Jade was about 1 when that happened. So Marion has been in Jade's life her whole life.
Wow.
All of that time. Marion and I were together 15 years, but the bond that they've got together is like, Marion was another mum pretty much. So there was so much going on in my head as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old. There was a lot to navigate.
Were you scared about how your parents were going to receive, how they were going to react to this information?
I was terrified, and it took me 3 years before I came out to my family, and some weren't surprised. My mum tried to undo it. She was like, how long has this been going on? And I said 3 years. She said, well, that's a lot to undo, as if it was something that could be reversed or somehow talked out of or just a phase, But 26 years later, 25 years later, it's not a phase.
Just like, well, we're still working on it, she's saying.
Yeah, that's right.
So what was your family? Were they accepting? Were they supportive? Because I'm only imagining that at that point in your own life, having a 1-year-old baby, you need your family support around you. That's almost imperative to getting through those hard times. So did they still step up to the plate in that?
Well, the thing is that when you newly come out as gay, and anybody who's been through this experience will know, especially at that time when there was no social media or no way of really connecting to people, the only way you could is by going out, going out to gay pubs and clubs. That was the only way that you could meet other people. And so I really needed that. But Jade was a baby. So I would drop her off to my mum for babysitting and go out clubbing just to make friends,
Yeah, of course.
So she didn't realise that she was, facilitating or enabling me to realise my sexuality, which I've never thought of it like that before. But
how was your upbringing, being that you came from a very Christian family and it was probably a little bit more strict and regimented? How has that impacted your parenting?
I was hell-bent on bringing Jade up with an open mind. And the more I could expose her to in terms of, drag queens and gay men and lesbians and, transgender people and everybody from our queer community. And she is open-minded. She's fair and open-minded, and she just treats people just like they're all the same, that's all I could imagine, ever hope for, as a parent, and which is different from how I was raised. And I still have, one of my sisters is a born-again Christian, and her children aren't allowed to come to our house.
Oh, wow.
Because we're lesbians.
Has that affected your relationship with her?
Yes, it has, and I love her. I love her kids, and I would have loved them to have a relationship with me. It's when you raise children fearful of things. You've got to be able to be open and have conversations about everything. Positive body image, is really important for girls and boys. Talk to them about gender identity, for example. Just to say it's okay if you don't know whether you're a boy or a girl, or one day you might feel more feminine and one day you might feel more masculine. So it's really important just to have everything open so that you just provide a safe space for whatever happens.
Did you ever feel that you had to try harder? Did you ever feel like you were really competing in this space?
That was the whole basis of our upbringing. My mum is Irish and my dad is Aboriginal, and so here we have a white woman with 5 little kids, and we had to look exceptional. We would not be allowed to leave the house unless we all looked exceptionally well groomed. Our hair was perfect, shoes, socks, the works, because she knew that we would be looked at. And that became the whole basis of our life. We had to try harder. We had to be more polite, have table etiquette when we went to friends' houses because we would be judged. And, it probably shouldn't have to be that way, but it was true,
Melanie Dimmott's identity was, in her words, rocked when she became a mother. The first part was nice and lovely and the usual amount of sleeplessness mixed with cuddles and peekaboo. But her son Arlo was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and she had to totally reassess her own identity and her perceptions of her son's identity too. When you found out that Arlo has cerebral palsy, did it change your perception of what motherhood was going to be for you?
Yeah, I was devastated. It took the future I had in my mind, it just smashed it. I suddenly had absolutely no idea what motherhood was going to be. Well, I did. I sort of hacked together this horrible image of what motherhood was going to be because I had all these terrible preconceptions about what disability is, and certainly what, severe, profound physical disability is. And, I feel so differently now, but at the time I honestly felt that, for someone to live in a wheelchair and not be able to talk, I thought, well, what's the point? And it hurts me to say that now because I've learned that there are so many ways of being and so many ways of being happy, and certainly being able to walk and talk does not equal happiness by any stretch. So I've learned that now. But at the time when I learned that my baby boy, might never walk and talk, I just thought, what is the point? What are we doing? Like, how am I ever going to live like this? How is my son ever going to be happy?
Is there anything about your identity that you really feel like since becoming a mother has completely shifted?
I think I've made a point of really not. I was so worried that when I became a mother that I would have to become a mother, if you know what I mean. And it's been such a relief to realise, no, I still get to be me. There's parts of me that don't have to change. Other stuff changes obviously, but a lot of that is good. I'm so much more resilient now. I don't care about petty shit as much as I used to. But I think a lot of what has surprised me and relieved me about this experience is, I am still me. I still get to be me. I'm not just a mum.
We'll be back in a moment, but first a message from the sponsor of Me After You, Huggies. One thing that I think all mothers can relate to is that at some point in their parenting journey, they are going to feel guilt or they're going to be shamed for some decision that they make. Now, I remember when Marley was only 3 weeks old and Matt and I had gone out for our first outing as a family, and my sister had taken a photo of the three of us together, and I thought it was a beautiful photo, so of course I uploaded it to Instagram. But what I didn't realise is that directly behind me was a smoking area sign. The backlash on social media was swift and it was harsh, and I received criticism from a whole myriad of different people, including a lot of other mums. But obviously what wasn't captured in that one single photo was that there was nobody smoking in the area around me. And I only want what's best for my child, so I'm never going to put her in a situation where she's in danger. Now, mine is just one story of many, but I think that every mother out there would have their own story about how they have felt judged or shamed at a different point in their motherhood journey. And that's exactly the conversation that Huggies wants to be having. New parents are shamed for so many different things, whether it be breastfeeding in public, the use of childcare, their diet during pregnancy. No matter what your parenting style, be comfortable in your skin, whilst Huggies Ultimate Nappies deliver Huggies' best comfort and care for your baby's skin. Maria Paz Hurtado is originally from Chile. She moved to Australia when she met her husband, and he convinced her to follow him here. Fast forward a few years and they now have a family here, something that Maria has struggled with a little bit, particularly because she doesn't want to lose her Chilean identity when raising kids in a multicultural home.
We named them both in this Spanish/English name. I did speak to them in Spanish when they were very young. Because my husband doesn't speak Spanish, it's getting harder with the years. and they answer to me in English because of daycare. So that's getting a bit harder. But we do FaceTime my parents a lot, and they speak to them in a bit of Spanglish, try to keep the Spanish going. We go back to Chile, try to go once a year. This year we couldn't for obvious reason. My 2 sisters and my mom were meant to come here in June, and that didn't happen, which was pretty heartbreaking. I don't know. I try to cook. Not really, to be honest. I don't cook Chilean food for my kids. It's very time consuming and usually done in groups. So like empanadas, it's just you have to do the means, you have to fry the onion, you have to boil it, and then you have to do the pastry, then you have to lay the pastry and fold it. I don't have time to do that.
Yeah. I gave them Spanish names. That was enough.
I gave them Spanish names. Yeah, I do raise them a bit in the Chilean way, in the sense that even though I have the room in my house, for each of them to have their own room, I put them together to have that sense of, this is your brother. You are in this together for life. No matter what he does, because I don't like him anymore, he's not my best friend anymore. Tough luck. He's your brother. He's going to be your brother forever. He's going to be your best friend forever. Some days you're not going to like him very much. It doesn't matter. He's still going to be your friend and your brother. And you're going to count on him forever. And I find that that's one of the things that I don't see that much in Australia. That he's your blood. You might not like him. He's your blood. I might not like some relatives of mine. They're my blood. My cousins. I grew up with my cousins. I cannot imagine a childhood for myself without going to my cousin's house every week. Every Sunday is lunch at my grandma's with all my cousins and all my uncles. And it's a lot of us. And just, even though you might not like one, you hear what they're doing and you're sort of up to date with what happens. And then you play with one, and then you move on and you play with another one. And that sort of family sense, it's really hard to create when you don't have the family here. So the little things about like putting the two of them sleeping together, for me, it's the beginning of maybe making this family that's going to count on each other. And we're planning for more kids. But I just cannot imagine my kids only having one sibling. I have 4 siblings. And as messy and as exhausting as it was sometimes, especially for my mom, I cannot imagine growing up without having a family to support you. And I want my kids to have that.
Single mum Evie Farrell is defying all the expectations of what being a single parent is. Travelling the world with her daughter and living out of a backpack, she has written the book Backyard to Backpack. But despite Evie's newfound identity and purpose, grappling with other people's expectations was one of the most confronting things about motherhood. Tell me about the very first few years after Emmy was born.
Yeah, the first few years after Emmy was born were just the total opposite, I suppose, to what I was expecting, because I thought I'd come home from the hospital with Emmy and into this like little family environment. And it was totally different to that. So her dad and I split up very quickly, a few months after she was born.
Oh, I didn't realise it was so soon.
Yeah, it was so soon. And in fact, like I was looking at your Instagram and I saw this like beautiful little video that you have of you and Maddie and Molly, and I think you're all dancing.
Yeah.
And you're really sharing that moment together, kind of looking, I can see it, you look at your child doing something funny and then you look at each other and you both have a laugh together. And so I missed out on all of that. Very early it was me and Em. And I mean, that's fine because I had such a great connection with her, and I was very thrown into this position where I had to survive. I mean, I made it work, but I did miss out on a lot of the things that I expected would be part of my motherhood experience. I went back to work quite quickly. Emmy was in like really long daycare. So yeah, I think that over the next few years, I was working so much and I didn't get to spend as much time with her as I wanted. And that really led me to this path of trying to figure out how am I going to make it work for myself where I can spend time with her during these years that are just so important for us to have this really strong connection.
So how do you adapt when your idea of what motherhood is going to be turns out to be something completely different, and you're almost robbed of this fantasy that you've created?
Yeah. For me, really, it was just a matter of survival. I had to do it. I still remember like looking at Emmy. I think I was giving her a bath, and I thought, well, it's just us now. And I think I had to really focus on the positive, that I was sure that it just being the two of us was ultimately going to be better than her being the child of an unhappy relationship. So even though I missed out on certain elements that I expected, there were like other amazing things. I did get to have as much time with her as I did when she was quite small, even though I had no idea what I was doing. Like I didn't even know how to change a nappy. I was just hopeless. I was like, I had no idea about breastfeeding. Like I was like milked by a nurse in the hospital. Like I was just clueless. And then like coming home and I was still clueless, but we got through it, you know, and now, you know, we have such a strong bond, and I think a lot of that comes from as well. There's just two of us in the home, and there's just two of us most of the time, and so we have a really good connection because of that.
Did you have much support around you in those early years, like family, friends, other people to lean on? Because I think like being thrown into being a single mum, and also like no one knows what they're doing, but when you feel like you don't know what you're doing and you have no one to bounce that off, that makes things incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I did. Like my parents were like really, really supportive, and I made a great bunch of friends through Mother's Group, which I used to just laugh and giggle about Mother's Group. But it's so amazing because, like you said, everyone's going through the same thing. No one knows what they're doing. Everyone shares their mistakes, and it just makes you feel so much better. But in the breakup, I lost a lot of friends. So friends that I thought I would have support from disappeared. So in that way, I had to. I mean, I think I didn't leave the house for a long time, but it was really hot that summer, and I was just, you know, just cocooned myself, I suppose, with Em.
Motherhood changes us in some of the most unexpected ways. It breaks us and it rebuilds us as a whole new person. As a mum, it tests every fibre of your being, and under that pressure, we all discover qualities about ourselves that maybe we didn't know we possessed before. For Evie, it was her softness. What is it about motherhood, if you look at your life now in comparison to pre-Emmy, how has it changed you as a person?
Oh my God, I cry now. Like I used to have like this really like hard, like I feel like I was so tough, and now I'll cry. Like on the way here on the radio, we were listening to someone like they were pranked, right? And I cried for that person. I'm like, what's going on? I'm so soft. And I like that. I like that part of myself. And at the same time, it's given me a strength as well. That just this inner strength to know that you're responsible for someone. I mean, just the fact that we gave birth to like a person, it's crazy. So, and I think we don't like congratulate ourselves enough on that, right? I mean, that's just amazing. So I feel like I am definitely a very different person. So I would say, yeah, like a more authentic version of me and a stronger version. I'll stand up for myself more, but then I'll cry at the same time. So.
It's just vulnerable. I think that's like you're vulnerable, and that's a beautiful thing, but you also have a stronger sense of self, which they can go hand in hand. They seem like they're polarizing, but they actually can coexist really beautifully.
Yeah, you're right. And that's what opens you up.
For some mums, motherhood comes at a time when they're only just becoming an adult themselves. That was the case for Alex Nation, who was just 18 when she had her baby Elijah. Navigating motherhood alongside adulthood has its own set of wild challenges.
Yeah, I look back and I even look at 18-year-olds now and I'm like, wow, how the hell was that me? Like, I don't know if 18-year-olds have changed through the times, but like I look at you know, I have cousins that are 18 years old and I look at them, I'm like, how could you have a baby like right now? And that was me. And I was like a baby with a baby. Like looking back, I thought I knew everything. I knew the world. I had everything down pat. I had everything figured out. But hindsight's, it's a beautiful thing. But, I made it work.
Well, like with that, so with this idea that you're growing into being an adult at the same time that you're discovering motherhood, talk me through those first few years after you had Elijah.
So I actually really struggled with the first few years. So while I was pregnant, I really enjoyed it. And then once I had my baby, I kind of didn't know who I was anymore because, my friends were traveling the world and going to university and going out partying and doing the things that you do in your late teens and early 20s. So for me, I felt so incredibly lost in who I was because I felt like I missed out on this huge chunk of my youth. And, that really fun, exciting, selfish part where I had to become really selfless. And it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about my baby. So those first probably 3 years I found extremely difficult. I think that also took a toll on mine and Joel's marriage because, we got married when I was 20 and, all of a sudden I was this 20-year-old girl with a baby and a husband. And I remember it just crashing down around me going, obviously I want a baby, but this isn't what I want. Like, I don't want them. I'm not ready for the marriage yet. I'm not ready for the white picket fence. Like, I really felt like I needed to find me outside of being mum again. And I feel like I only was able to do that probably when I was about 23 is when I started to actually say, you know what, I'm not just mum, I'm Alex as well. And it's okay to do things outside of just being mum.
Mum of twins Grace Bell, like all mums, she's struggled with this feeling that she's lost touch with her old self. Amidst the sleepless nights and the relentlessness of parenting, you can wake up one day and feel totally disconnected from the old you.
Oh, I think that's a hard one. Like, the girls are 3 now, so I'm definitely coming through a lot of those trials that we had. Like, I'm enjoying work more. I'm back to 9 days a fortnight. But in terms of identity, like, a lot of my identity was like traveling and freedom and independence. I'm a huge introvert, so I like to do my own thing, and I struggle being relied upon all the time. So my identity has been somewhat suppressed throughout it. However, I am loving like watching my children grow and being proud of the new little people that we've created that are kind and funny and caring.
Is motherhood what you expected it was going to be?
It's harder. Yeah. I was a nanny for a long time and I managed it, but I think the difference with being a mum, not even a dad, mum, is, like I said, relentless. That would be my word. So, I knew it would be hard, but it's been harder than I thought, and equally as joyous.
Yeah, I know. I feel like sometimes when I feel like I have to tack that on the end because I feel like if I don't, I'm being ungrateful. But I think it's important to also have conversations about the really hard parts and also air that because I think you do get into this lulled sense of that it's all going to be wonderful, and it changes everything. It's hard. It really is at times.
I know there needs to be a disclaimer. Of course, like, I'm so grateful to have the girls and we're so blessed and lucky and they are a hoot, but there is a lot of it that isn't talked about.
While your identity as a woman changes after you have kids, that doesn't mean you are losing yourself. Mum Emmeline Filati acknowledges that it's a huge shift in how she saw herself, but that's okay.
The woman that you were like pre-babies is so different, even though you don't think it is, but the woman you are pre-babies is so much different to the woman you are with babies, even though you're the same person. And when you're going through those transitions and hard times and, the crying on the floor, like pretty much like begging the cot to go to sleep, like, please child, like go to sleep, or, sitting on the couch with spew in your hair, all of those moments, they take a little bit of you away, but they replace it with like a little piece that's more nurturing, more loving, more patient, more understanding. And then you kind of morph into this like superhuman that, I'm so proud of the woman I am as a mum. I didn't think I had a lot of the qualities in me that I did, but, I think being a mum can bring out the worst and it can bring out the best.
It's undeniable that motherhood shifts your identity in some of the most challenging and simultaneously wonderful ways. And sometimes it can feel as though you're still caught in that transition between who you used to be and who you are now. Becoming a mother is one of the most significant identity shifts a woman will have in her adult life. It's as though someone has just drawn a line in the sand, and there is your old pre-baby self, and then there is a new you, a tireder you, a more overwhelmed you, but also a you that is patient, wiser, and more whole. You're a mum. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Me After You. This is a Mamma Mia podcast hosted by me, Laura Byrne. Our executive producer is Elise Cooper, with additional production and editing support by Lemma Zakaria. We'd love to say a very big thank you to every single woman who has shared their stories with us. And for a full list of all of the credits, please head to the description on this episode. This episode of Me After You is made in partnership with Huggies. Be as comfortable in your skin as your baby feels in Huggies nappies.